You know the scene, right? Every parent does. Your child is sick, they've got a fever, and you reach into that medicine cabinet for something you trust to make them feel better. It's a moment of relief.
But imagine you open that little bottle, and this is what you see inside. What do you do then?
And believe me, this isn't just some made up scenario. Parents, real parents, have reported finding exactly these things: little black particles floating around, tiny specks of metal, and even weird gel like clumps in their kids' medicine. To really get what's going on, we have to rewind the clock a bit, back to a huge recall that absolutely rocked one of the most trusted brands out there. On April 30th, 2010, this number, 136 million bottles of children's medicine, were yanked from store shelves. It was the single largest recall of its kind, ever. And we're not talking about obscure brands here. These are the names that are probably in your medicine cabinet right now: children's Tylenol, Motrin, Zyrtec, Benadryl, the go-to stuff we all rely on. But here's the kicker. This is the part that turned a manufacturing problem into a real crisis of trust. According to federal investigators, the company, which is a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson, knew about the contamination issues for a full year before they told the public. Just look at this timeline. So in May of 2009, parents started calling in complaining about black particles. But nothing happened publicly until a year later, in April 2010, when the FDA inspected a plant in Pennsylvania and found it was, well, dirty. The actual recall didn't even happen until the next month. That's a whole year these products were potentially on shelves and in people's homes. Well, as you can imagine, the public was outraged, and this whole mess escalated all the way to a dramatic showdown right in front of a congressional committee. So, on one side, you have the company. A Johnson & Johnson executive, Colleen Goggins, testified that the health risks were remote. Basically, they were downplaying any real danger to kids. But then, the FDA stepped up, and they saw things very, very differently. The Deputy Commissioner, Dr. Sharpstein, was incredibly blunt. He told the committee, it should not have taken a year. It should have taken 3 days for us to hear about it. He made it clear this was a major failure. It was like they were describing two different realities. The FDA found a dirty plant with dust and grime. Johnson & Johnson said they had a rigorous testing program. The FDA said the company knew about a smelly contaminant way back in 2008 and just sat on it. The company's story? Oh, it was just a very unusual compound that was, hard to figure out.
And just when you think the story can't get any stranger, it does. Because investigators didn't just find out about the delayed recall, they uncovered something else, something that sounds like it's straight out of a spy novel. A phantom recall. Okay, so check this out. The company realized some of its Motrin tablets weren't dissolving right. Now, instead of announcing it, they hired outside contractors. These people were sent into stores, mostly gas stations, to secretly buy every last box of the bad Motrin. And an internal document actually told them, and I quote, there must be no mention of this being a recall of the product. Unbelievable.
So, what happened after all of this came out? Well, the fight in Congress led to legal action, and it really boiled down to one big question. Was the company putting profits before people?
In the end, McNeil, that Johnson & Johnson subsidiary, pled guilty to federal criminal charges. And the fine they had to pay for selling all that contaminated medicine? $25 million. Which really makes you wonder, right? Is $25 million a fair price for putting the health of millions of kids at risk? Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, that was a terrible story, but it was over a decade ago. Surely they've fixed these things by now. Well, maybe not. The really scary part is that this issue of contaminated medicine for kids has not gone away. In fact, a very recent situation feels like a bad case of déjà vu. Just look at this. A different manufacturer, Strides Pharma, recently had to recall almost 90,000 bottles of children's ibuprofen. And the reason? Get this. Reports of a gel-like mass and black particles. Sound familiar? It just goes to show that even after all the public outrage and big fines, the same exact quality problems can pop up again. The FDA calls this one a Class 2 recall, and you can see the specific lot numbers to look out for. So, with all of this going on, what's a parent or a caregiver supposed to do? What do you actually need to know to make sure your family stays safe? First off, let's just quickly break down what a Class 2 recall even means. The FDA has 3 levels. Class 1 is the most serious. It could cause death. Class 3 is for minor stuff. Class 2 is in the middle. It means the product could cause temporary health problems, but the chance of serious harm is, and I quote, remote. So it's not the worst case scenario, but it's definitely not something you want to ignore.
So what can you do? Here are the key takeaways. First, and this is a big one, just get in the habit of looking at the medicine before you give it to anyone. Check the color, the texture, see if it smells funny. Second, you can always check the FDA's website for the latest recalls. It's also a good idea to know where to find the lot number on the box. And if you see anything that looks off, just don't use it. And hey, you can even report problems yourself through the FDA's MedWatch program.
When you step back and look at it all, you see a pattern, right? Delayed reports, conflicting stories, and some really serious questions about whether the penalties are actually enough to change things. It all leaves us with this one final question. When a company that brands itself as a family company breaks that fundamental trust, who's really there to hold them accountable?